Hey, good morning or good afternoon. Thanks for joining me. I'm Sandy Casella with Casella Homes Real Estate, and welcome to my podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Evelyn Lopez, who is number one, a realtor with a lot of experience and a good friend of mine. So I'm super excited to talk to Evelyn. Thank you so much for joining us here. And we're going to have a discussion basically about the real estate market, different areas, and just things that we think are important to you or to buyers and sellers as a whole. So thanks so much for joining me, Evelyn. And go ahead and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Sandy. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Evelyn Lopez with the Evelyn Lopes Realty Team, and I work with Remax Realty Specialists. And I've been helping families for a very long time, since 1987. And basically, I serve the communities of Caledon, I do Orangeville, Shelburne, um, Brampton, Mississauga, and Guelph is pretty much kind of where I am. So Northwest GTA.
Thank you so much. And we were just talking about this the other day, the years of experience between the two of us, because I was licensed in 1989. So we're, 60, almost
Oh,
70 years of experience. So, well, we look great for that. But
so I
I
guess I guess we've had a little bit of experience,
a
right?
little bit, yeah, a
All
little bit.
different kinds of markets, which is
Yes,
amazing. Yep.
yes. And well, basically, the two of us have been through. This will be the fourth real estate recession that the two of us have been through.
Mhm.
Right? Was
Yeah.
1989, and I feel like right now is very much like that 1989 market that we had, where the peak there, and then it came down for 5 or 6 years. And I feel like things are very, very much the same as they are back then.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of similarities. When I first got into real estate, I had 3 months of good, and then it was like overnight, things changed. And it was very similar in our case. We had COVID kind of ended. And then I remember at the end of February going, there's something different happening with the market. And then within a week or two, it was like, yes, we have a change. We are in the midst of some definite changes in the marketplace, and we've been in those changes for quite some time now. So
Yeah,
it's
I
it's
think it's in.
navigating things that I think a lot of buyers and sellers were used to during that peak time that they expect to be normal. That really wasn't normal.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because there are certain things that we think about in real estate, or that people don't understand why the experience matters so much. And I did a podcast a few weeks ago with a lawyer, Barbara Frederici, that we use quite often. And she said most of the deals that she sees where there's problems, it's because of inexperienced realtors or part-time realtors, or we're not going to get into that today. However, the experience really matters in knowing what's important, and what to look out for, especially in this type of a market. Because I feel like almost every deal that we've done this year has had some hiccups in it. And being able to navigate those things is really important, because it's all good when it all goes well. But when little things come up that you have the experience to deal with, I think that makes a big difference.
Yep, I totally agree.
Yeah, so I'm excited to hear a little bit about your market. I mean, although there is some crossover with you and I, there's you deal with a lot, like in Caledon and some of those like rural areas where it is a little bit different when you're buying a property. So
Mhm.
if you're used to buying a home that's in a subdivision, and then you're going into a rural property, there's different things that you have to look out for, septic and well, and some people are really freaked out by that. But you have a lot of experience with that, don't you?
Yes, and again, that's where experience comes in. I can't tell you how many times I've sold a rural property and had an agent come in with an offer who basically just did city properties. And I look at the offer and I said, they have not represented their clients to the best interest. There are so many aspects missing about it that you really have to look at when you are buying rural. So again, that's where that experience comes in. And I think rural properties are a little bit different from, your traditional uh, city property or more subdivision type property because they are all so very unique. So pricing rural properties, I find takes a whole lot more time.
Yeah, it does. And I typically deal with properties, like in Etobicoke and Mississauga and those areas. So they're, on municipal properties and stuff, but I live in a rural property. So that was a big eye opener for me, and just learning some of that stuff. So it really comes down to, we're licensed in Ontario, right? We're licensed
Mhm.
everywhere in Ontario. Does that mean we should sell everywhere in Ontario? Probably not. So even though we do go outside of our boundaries, we're very careful to say, this is not an area that I can deal with. This is not a place that I'm comfortable helping you. I would prefer to refer you to someone else, because you're right. If you're this, if this is where buyer representation, I think, is really, really important, right? Because if you're dealing with a part-time realtor or a friend or somebody, and you're using them because you know them, and then you're buying in an area that they're not equipped to deal with, like a rural property, it could cause
Mhm.
big headaches down the road.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And I for Caledon, for example, which is where I live and I do a lot of work here too. Um, just because you're rural in one area of Caledon, it's very different from another area of Caledon. Not only in terms of price, but in terms of what's going on in and around your property. And I always tell people, like, when you buy a property, similar to when you buy a condo, just because you look out the condo and it's a clear view doesn't mean it's going to be a clear view for long. There might be an application to build another tower that's going to interfere with your view, your lighting, everything like that. So similar with rural properties or any property. If there's vacant land around you, you want to know what it's zoned for, and is there any applications in the running, and where's the timing for that, so that you really understand what you're buying. Because I think when you buy a home, it shouldn't be like, I'm going to buy it for a year or two and then move on. I always say to people, you should be looking for at least minimum 5 years staying in that house to make it worth your while, and that it's a house that's going to be able to accommodate you at least in the near foreseeable future as your life transitions, whatever that may be, whether it's starting a family or downsizing your family. Is that home going to serve you?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, because a year, so if you think you're going to live in a house for a year or two goes by really
Mhm.
fast. Like, I know even where I am now, my plan was to be here for a year or two, and it's now been 5, and it doesn't feel like it's been a year or two. So one reason is just because I fell in love with the area once I moved here. But like I say, a year does go by fast, and things come up, and you're dealing with other issues sometimes. So life doesn't always go as planned. So yeah, and I just learned something today. Like, you just taught me something about rural properties, because you're right. One area can be very different from another, even though you're still in Caledon, even though it's
Mhm.
still a rural property, there can be big differences. So I think that part of it's really important to understand. And you've got a lot of experience on both sides. And the interesting thing you said about the condos, and understanding that what you see out your window today may not be what you see out your window in a year from now. We have very different, as realtors, we have very different criteria than builders have. So builders will put up a building, and sell you on the fact that you have a view, and there's no recourse when another building goes up there. Like, we
Mhm.
and I mean, as a realtor, we're not liable for that. However, we are in a certain way, right? Like, if we have a buyer who's buying a condo, and we know that the view is very important to them, and they're buying this because they can see the lake or they can see whatever, then it's on us to make sure and do some due diligence and find out, to the best of our knowledge, that that is always going to be the view, or hopefully, from what we
Mhm.
can find out, where builders don't have that kind of responsibility, right? They're very different.
Right. And also, even buying rural properties, going back to that, like, people don't understand, if there is a farm across the street from you, uh, what kind of farm is it? Is it a farm that's got livestock, or is it a farm that's, growing corn or whatever? Because that's going to affect you in one way or the other. So, one thing is that farmers are allowed to do their farming at any time. So they might be tilling their soil at 11:30 at night with
Mhm.
their bright lights on their machines. And is that going to bother you? How close are you? Are they using any kind of pesticides, that's going to be, um, you know, uh, negative to you, or maybe you've got breathing problems or things like that. And then if they've got cows or other types of livestock like chickens or pigs, like there's smells, there's odors. And are you aware of that? And are you okay with that? And then the other thing about living on rural property is you have this piece of land, and it could be an acre, it could be 100 acres, but what's beside you? Because it's not like living in a subdivision where you know that all the houses around you are similar. When you're living rural, you could have this big, beautiful house, you could have a farm across the street, and then you could have this other house that's really derelict. So that's why, again, knowing your area becomes increasingly important and a little bit different from buying in a rural area.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And I see that out here where I am, where there's a farm beside me, and in the spring and the fall, like they farm corn or sometimes different things, soy, stuff like that. But in the fall and the spring, the trucks are going in that farm nonstop. And I'm talking 10, 11 at night, 12 at night, 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning. It doesn't bother me. I love it. However, you're right. It is something that you have to be cognizant of, because you think it's so quiet out here. It's really busy. It's like I watch these farmers and I think, man, we work hard as realtors, but these guys work hard.
Mm-hmm,
They're always working. It's crazy. And you're right.
mm-hmm.
I see them outside, like sometimes in the, like I say, in the fall and the spring, like they're working nonstop. It's crazy to me, but it's really,
Right. And
I love it.
right. And especially farmers that are doing livestock, like they can't go away. It's like
I know.
having a bunch of dogs. Like someone's got to be there to look after them, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, they are definitely hard workers and really important uh,
Oh yeah.
to
Oh,
us. Yes.
absolutely. Even I always laugh because I like the traffic out here is really no traffic out here, but every once in a while I'll get stuck behind a tractor or whatever. I mean, the speed limit's 80, the tractor's going 50. And it's so funny to me because when I'm in the city, the traffic drives me crazy. But I can be stuck behind a tractor and it doesn't bother me. Like I just enjoy it for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but you're right. Like these farmers are so important, right? It's so
Mhm.
important. It's such an important job. Like it's crazy to me how hard these guys work. So
Right. And the other thing about living in the country is like it might be a distance to go somewhere. Like where I am, there's no shopping, nothing. And I love it. And me, the shopper that I am, we all know,
that's
right? I love to shop. And but I love that there's nothing commercial around me and I have to go somewhere. But like you said, the drive to get there is so peaceful. And for me, I would rather drive the back roads and just have the trees and beautiful houses and just calm, no traffic, and drive maybe a couple of minutes longer, but just have a peaceful drive as opposed to, going busy. And last night I was down in Brampton at the Power Raid watching my husband and son play hockey. And it was late at night. We were coming back and we thought, oh, let's take the back roads. Well, we took the back roads and we did not see one car. And it was just so relaxing. We had the nice music on and we came home and we were just so chill. We're like, this is why
yeah.
we moved up here, right?
I know. And I don't know if you have, you're right though. It is so peaceful. And I don't know if you have, like where I am, there's a Facebook group for our area. And when I first moved here, I got on that Facebook group. And every once in a while in the Facebook group, you'll see a post like, hey, check your farm. Did your cows get out last night? Because they're in my, on my area, whatever, right? Or hey, whose dog is this? Or there's some chickens on the road. And the first few times I saw that, I was like, is this a joke? I don't think
Right. The
and
other
it's
one on ours was, oh, there's a bear. Because I
yes.
don't know where this bear is, or there's a bunch of coyotes. Or the other day, I'm walking along the road and there's this I went, who did not pick up their dog poop? Like it was huge. And my neighbor's like, that's not dog poop. That's coyotes. See the berries in there? And I'm like, I wasn't looking that closely.
It's so funny, eh? That is so funny. I always
Mhm,
laugh when I see those posts, right? And then or in my mail, I'll get like the the marketing things for tractors and farm equipment. And I always laugh. I'm like, wow, like I really do live here when you start
mhm.
getting that stuff in the mail. But the posts of the cows, hey, have you seen my cows? They got out, or it's just so it's really humorous, but it's so funny because I'm not that far. Like I'm really close to everything, right? It looks like I'm in the middle of nowhere, but I'm 10 minutes or 15 minutes from like three bigger cities where, right? So it's pretty
Mhm.
cool. But so if you're so I know that during COVID, a lot of people moved out of like the cities and because they were
Mhm.
working remotely. Um, and I haven't heard of, I think like some people were saying they'll, all these people will move back. I haven't really heard that. But for anyone thinking of doing that, of moving like from a more populated area outside, what would you think is the biggest thing to look for other than what you've already talked about is making sure that you're working with someone who has experience and they know what to look out for? What would you say is the most
I
important?
would say the most important thing for anybody moving anywhere, I would say, is two things. One is to really talk about either to your, if you're just doing it on yourself or with your family, what's important about making that move, what's really driving it, what would happen if you didn't move, how would that affect your life, if
Mhm.
anything at all? And in that move, what is the most important thing to you? Is it, people always say, oh, it's a bigger house, but what's important about having a bigger house? And then you sort of dive into it and it's like, well, I need more room. Well, what's important about having more room? Well, I work from home. I want to have an office. And what's important about having an office? I don't want to drive back and forth. So it's digging those layers, or it might be, because I need more room because, one of my parents are getting older and I don't want them being on their own. I want to have them in the house with me. And what's important about that? Well, they can't look after themselves. They don't have money to go to an expensive facility that's going to take care of them. I'm the principal caregiver. This just makes my life easier to have it all in one. So going really deep about what's important. It's not just about I need to move or I want to move. There's a reason behind it. And finding out that reason will tell you whether it's the right time. Because people always say, is it the right time to buy now? Should I wait for prices to go lower? Well, if what you want to do is make a move and it's important to your life to do it now, and everything is aligned, then now is the right time. Because what's the right time for me is not the right time for you. But knowing how it's going to affect your life and make it better makes it make sense. So
Yeah.
that's number one. And then after that, it's like, okay, now you want to move and you find out why, what's important about it. It's where do you want to move? you know, and what's important about that location. Maybe it's to be 20 minutes from a hospital or, half an hour from work, whatever that is. And then once you find the location, the next step is what type of house do I want? Well, we all want the big house with everything in it, but what can we afford? So when you start to even think about going out to look or even start to get, your realtor to send you properties that are important to you, um, it's what can you afford? And I think the biggest thing that people do is they just assume they can afford something. Well, I'm looking online, I see properties at 800, or that's not good enough for me. So I want to spend 1 million because those are the houses I really like. But can you afford it? Like, will the bank give you that million? And even if the bank will give you that million, are you comfortable with those payments? Because if you're not comfortable with those payments, then you've got to make some adjustments. Either you've got to uh, you know, lower your expectations or maybe think outside the box and go maybe another 10 or 15 minutes further. That will give you a community that will give you everything you want in a house for the price that you want. And when you're talking about financing, you need to speak to a mortgage consultant and you need to make sure that you submit all of your documents, that you are totally pre-approved, based obviously on the house, because all mortgages are subject to the house, but that you've submitted those documents. Because now more than ever, I find that the financial institutions are really cracking down and they're making it more difficult to um, qualify for their mortgage. Money's tight right now. So you want to make sure that you've got all the paperwork that you need, because when you find that house that you love, yes, you can make it conditional on financing. Yes, I would say yes, make it conditional on financing so that the appraisal comes in and all of that. But you don't want to go into an offer. And if I was representing the seller, the first thing I would say is thanks so much for your offer. And, tell me a little bit about your clients. Have they been pre-approved? And if the agent goes, no, I'm like, okay, well then how do we even know that you can afford this house? You want us to take it off the market basically for 5 days while you go to get your financing. And we don't even know if you're in that realm. So it makes it harder for you as a buyer to get a good price. But if you come in and you say, yes, I've been pre-approved with this financial institution, I've submitted all their documents, I have the pre-approval in my hand, it's subject now to the bank appraising your house, right? So then it puts everything in a different light. Then they know that this is a really bona fide offer that they don't want to miss out, especially in a market like this. And you as a buyer are going to have more leverage in your negotiations. So those
Yeah,
are kind of the steps.
yeah, absolutely. And I agree 100% with everything that you've said, for sure. You've absolutely covered every base there because it's important, right? Some people just show me the house, just show me the house. Well, there's a lot more to it than just showing you the house and going, we're not helping you if that's all we're doing, right? Just opening doors. So it
Right.
also,
I'll tell you. Yeah.
go ahead.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go
No,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I was going to tell you a story. So I have this house that was listed and we were getting a lot of showings. And this one agent, uh, anyways, he came back for the fourth showing. I saw him on the street with his client. He goes, "Oh, we were going to come to the open house. It was finished." And I said, "Well, I can, book you and you can go and look at it." So it turned out it was the fourth showing that he had. And the next day I called him because we got another offer in and I was trying to see if anybody else was interested. Obviously, I'm working for my seller. And I said, "Well, what did your client think about the house? Because they've gone to see it 4 times." And he says, "Well, they love the house." And I said, "Well, that's great. I just want to let you know that we have an offer. If, they're really interested, now may be the time that they need to submit, and see where it goes." And I said, "And have they been pre-approved?" And he said, "No." I'm like, "You've been taking this guy or this couple out for 4 times to my house or my listing, and you've been taking them out, you said, to see tons of houses, and you don't even know if they're qualified for this price? That's a waste of the buyer's time and of your time. And now they love this house and they're not in the position to even try for it." Like,
Right. And the seller's time, like it's just mind-boggling to me that you would go through all that without knowing whether the person is approved or not, because
right.
you're really not helping anybody in that case. And I think that
No,
I'm going to get you to talk about what's important as a seller, but one thing I think is important about that is with sellers from we track everything like you the same, right? You track your stuff. So we track showings and offers. We track everything. And what I've learned over, all these years of selling real estate is that it basically takes now we'll take out the market conditions because the market conditions depend that makes it how many showings you should get in a certain amount of time. In a buyer's market like we're in now, you should be getting 10 to 15 showings within the first probably 21 to 30 days in this type of a market. It takes 10 to 15 showings to get an offer. For every 10 to
I
15
agree
showings
with you
you have,
100%.
right, you should have an offer, right? But what sellers don't understand, and this is why I explained it to them right up front, is because we have to understand this is a really emotional business, right? People buy with their heart, they justify with their head. For a seller, this is a home that they love. This has a lot of memories to them. There's a lot of love surrounding it in most cases. A lot of times it's a very hard move for sellers, especially if they're getting transferred or something. So when they get 10 or 15 people coming in to see their house, the seller loves their house. They think that these everybody will offer or they should get a whole bunch of offers, and it's not the way it works. And that's exactly why, because of those 10 to 15 people who come through, some of them could be neighbors who live in the area and they're going to put their house for sale. So their realtor books an appointment so they can compare. It could be someone, like you say, who's not pre approved. There is a big, in my opinion, there's a lot of issues with this industry. And one of them is some of these companies that basically do, and I'm not going to name the companies, but they basically just market properties and their realtors are given these leads. And it could be, I want to see this house. So I've seen this numerous times where realtor shows up, a buyer shows up, they get out of the car, they shake hands. It's really clear it's the first time they've ever met. And now this agent is going to take them into the house to show them the house. That's the way our industry works. We can't really change that. However, they're not qualified. Like, they haven't qualified this buyer. They haven't had discussions with them sometimes. And that's where you get people coming in. So that's why it takes 10 to 15. My whole thought process here, where what I was trying to say is that's why it takes 10 to 15 people to get an offer, because not all of those 10 to 15 people are serious buyers, right? And they could be someone who's in a different price range and the agent is trying to show them this is the price range you could buy in, or whatever. So
Mhm.
there's different reasons, but it's very emotional for sellers in that case. And when we're trying to provide feedback and saying to a seller, well, these people weren't qualified, so now they have to go out and figure out how much their house is worth. You're a seller who has kids, and now you've just put your whole house together. You've dragged your kids out of the house, the dog out of the house because there's a showing. You've kept everything clean, only to hear that, well, they're not qualified. It's really hard for sellers to hear that. It's the nature of the
Mhm.
beast, unfortunately. But as long as we can preempt that with sellers, I think they understand. But it is a big process. It is very hard to move. People underestimate how emotional it is to move and how hard it is to move. So, when you hear things like, "Oh, just give it a try" or whatever, there's no try. There's no try.
Mhm.
You got to be committed, because every dish has got to be clean, and no matter how neat you are, they still got to be put
Mhm.
away and all that kind of stuff. So it's
And
kind
and people who say, "I'm gonna try to sell my house, like, we'll just
of,
try this price," it's so not to their advantage. We know that the most activity of a listing is gonna be within the first 2 weeks of it being listed. And if you're trying that price and your price is out of whack, especially in a tight market like this, I mean, tight in terms of buyers, you're just gonna help your neighbor sell their house. And when the market is trending downwards, you're up here and the market's going here. The longer you are on the market, the more money you're losing. In an upward cycle, like we had during COVID, when all of a sudden this whole influx of people came into the real estate market thinking it was fast, easy money, you didn't need to know a thing. You can price, the market could be here, you could price your house here, and time would catch up and you'd be okay. But in a market like this is where you have to have someone with the experience of, first of all, pricing it properly, marketing it properly, and negotiating on your best interest when that offer comes in. Because in a market like this, we need to make sure that it's as tight as possible. And I don't want to get into all of those kinds of things, but you need to have an agent who knows how to read an offer and not just skim through it. Like, I could go off on a tangent and tell you how many times um, agents just miss these huge things. Um, and it's not to their advantage. And just calling up an agent to go see a house and not having a discussion beforehand. A lot of buyers think, I don't want to commit to anybody. I just want to kind of do it on my own. And all the agent does is open the doors. If that's what you're thinking, then you're missing the boat. The agent, a good agent, is there to represent your best interest and to treat your money like it's their own. That's how I treat my clients. I still have the first client that I ever had. Like, I mean, they're same with you. You do a lot of your business as past clients and referrals, and they are our bread and butter, and they are actually fantastic to deal with. And I would do anything for my client, right? And so if you're honest with your realtor, they can then best serve what's important to you.
that's so important about being honest about if you feel like you can't trust the realtor to tell them things, and you need to find a different one, plain and simple. Because
Mhm.
your realtor should they are representing you as a buyer, they're representing you as a seller, they're representing you. You need to really be able to trust them, and understand that they have your best interests at heart. And it's like, I don't think people understand how much sleep we use or lose, how much sleep we lose over some
Mhm.
of the deals that we do. Like, it's really emotional. It's emotional for the buyer and seller. It's also emotional for us because we get really emotionally involved with a lot of our clients. And I mean, a lot of them end up being friends, and things like that. So it's kind of funny. I had a deal just a while ago that we sold the client's house, and there was a delay on the buyer side. So I was acting for the seller. There was a delay. They needed another extra week to get something done with their financing on, they told us about a week before closing. And when I was talking to my seller, she was like, I'm almost kind of relieved because I just realized that I'm not going to be talking to you that much anymore. I just laughed. I said, you could still call me, right? We can
Yeah.
still be friends, we can still talk. But it's so true, especially with buyers. Like, you're so engrossed in their life, and you're
Hmm.
talking to them every day, and you're showing them houses, and you're doing other stuff behind the scenes to help them. And and then all of a sudden it's like this, withdrawal because you're not talking to them.
You're so right, because when we are in working together, it's like we're not talking to them even once a day. We can be talking to them several times a day and texting, and it's just like, I and that's important. You need to have a realtor that is really communicating with you. But you're right, it is a little bit of withdrawal for them, but for us too.
For us too. It's
Yeah.
it's so true. It's so funny. It's such a great business. I was just today, like, looking back, and today is my middle son's birthday, and it's also, I always know when I got my real estate license, because it was like either, so he's born the 19th, the 18th, 19th, or 20th that I got my real estate license. So I always remember how long it's been. So, and I was looking back through pictures and stuff, and I was just like, wow, like, what a great business this is. What a great career this is, that's allowed me so many things and meet so many different people and all that kind of stuff. So it's so incredible to me how don't get me wrong, there's some days that I get up and I hate this job. I need to find a job, whatever. You know what I mean? Some days I just, I'm like, oh, I can't go on. But at the end of the day, I just love it because there's so many things that it's allowed us to do, right? So,
Hmm. Hmm.
it is funny. But anyway,
And I look at us. We're kind of diverting, but we've both been in business a very long time. But
yeah,
where did we meet? We met because we invested in ourselves in coaching.
yes,
And I think we met in like California or something,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
Years after years. And then we were in a
Yeah,
mastermind group. And it's,
yeah,
it's not just about doing real estate here, it's so much more. And I think that's one of the things that really keeps me excited about this is the more I learn, the more I'm like, wow,
wow, I don't know anything.
wow,
That's what happens to
really.
me. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So I have to
There's
learn
more to
more.
learn,
But
and that's
yeah,
exciting. And
yeah.
every day is a different day, right? So,
Every day is so different. Every
yeah,
deal is so different because people are different, right? It's so
right.
crazy. And you're right. We met, right? Fred Proctor
That's
training,
the best part. Yeah. Mhm.
which was, and think of the friendships that we have within that group.
Mhm.
And we all met in California, and we're all like in the GTA. And it's so, some of those, a,
Right. And
a
for me,
lot of
I'm
people in the
doing
group
a, yeah,
are my best friends now, right? So
right.
yeah, it's
And I
crazy.
do training for different parts of my business for social media, for, you know, uh, videos, and just, for just tech stuff and just all this different stuff. So I'm a little bit everywhere, but
You do a lot. Yeah, you spend a lot, and you spend a lot of your time and your money on learning and improving and always growing, which is really, really inspiring for sure.
yeah,
That's
it's
important, right?
something it's
Because
it's something that I've done though my whole entire life.
yeah,
I I
it's who you are.
graduated university with more points or whatever credits than I needed. I ended up with 2 degrees. It's just always the more I learn, the more I want to know more.
Yeah, and it's true, and it shows. It shows in your experience and just everything that you accomplish. Because by all standards, you've been a very successful realtor and done very well. And the fact that you have your clients coming back to you all the time is a real testament, right? Because you cannot do this business and just churn and burn clients. You can't do it
Mhm.
because you'll get burnt out, and you'll never succeed if you are continually having to go out and get new clients all the time. It really is a people, like, it's a belly to belly business. And with so much stuff automated now, and um so much stuff that's, let's say, AI or stuff that's automated. I think that relationship, that personal relationship between, not only between the realtor and the client, but between other realtors, is really important, right? We really need to have that connection with other realtors because, number one, it makes it easier and makes deals go smoother. but it also kind of keeps us sane as realtors, and nobody really understands what it's like to do this job unless you are a realtor, right? Because
Mm.
it's I had a
Can be
client.
very lonely.
Yeah, exactly, right, and you start to go crazy, but I remember I had a client years ago who actually it was, friends of mine, and they were buying and selling a house, and the husband would always say his son was about to go into, I think he was in grade 11 or 12 and trying to decide what he wanted to take in university, and I would get so upset because every time his son would come in, the father would say, "Oh, you should just become a realtor. Just be a realtor like Sandy. She doesn't do anything and makes all kinds of money." And it used to really irritate me. And I would get upset at him. And we were friends, so I would say things to him. But by the end of the transaction, so he had to buy and sell. It was a very unusual thing because he wanted to sign both documents at one time, the buy and the sell. Anyway, at the end of it, he said, "Wow, I had no idea how hard you work. I've seen you 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, and then 7 o'clock the next morning, and then Sunday, whatever. I had absolutely no idea how hard you actually work." So people don't see a lot of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, right? We may be not, we do a lot of activities that we're not actually getting paid for. So it's really, it's such a great profession, but it's also, I think, really misunderstood. And I think we could go down a whole rabbit hole of that, of which we should do a
Right.
call on one day. But it is, the fact that I think I've been on every one of my children's school trips, and I could watch all of their sports, and I could take them where they needed to go. It allowed me that flexibility. So it's we're
It's
totally,
flexible, but it's not
it's
flexible as
flexible, but
much.
right.
No.
So having said that, there's also been times where I have to run out on a Sunday, or you have to run, you're working nights, and you're up early in the morning, and so having said that, it's not that easy where you can just do whatever you want whenever you want, because especially in a hot market, you weren't waiting. Okay, well, I'll show you that house on Friday. No, we're going now because there's
Mhm.
offers. We have to get out now. So, and then you're working all night because you're putting an offer together, whatever. So it is on both, as much hard work as there is. There's also a lot of beauty in it too. So yeah. So I was going
So,
to ask you about sellers. So what do you think is most important as a seller to look out for?
well, we know that sellers, as you say, they love their house, rightfully so, and they want to get the most amount of money that they possibly can. Because for most people, their house is their biggest investment, and they don't want to make a mistake. Nobody wants to make a mistake. So, in terms of that, I think again, it's speaking with your realtor who can let you know what things you should do, but more importantly, what things you should not do to increase the potential sale price of your home. Because sometimes I'll go in there and people are wanting to do things, and I'm like, that's really nice, but that's not going to make any difference to the sale price. But if you do this and this, which is actually less money than what you were going to do, that will make a difference in your sale price. So again, have the realtor come in before you put it on the market. Let them tell you what to do, what not to do. And then, usually what I'll do is I'll give them a price at that point. I'll say, these are the recommendations that you should do. And we should try to get it done as quickly as possible. And I have all kinds of people that can help you with that. And we can, turn this around in a week to 2 weeks. If they decide that they're going to do it on their own and it lags out, then, the market's going to change. Even in the 2 weeks, it could change. So once you're done, then the next part again is to reassess that price. And sometime, even in this recent market, I've said, okay, you know what? If the things that have done are great, you've really increased the value of the price, even better than I thought it would be. We can try a little bit harder. So I had that with one just recently. And then another one, he took so long to get his house ready. The market went down, and the things he did was not what I told him to do. Everything, and the timing was just long, and he missed that market. You know, so again, it's what to do, what not to do. Make sure your timing is tight, and then make sure that when you price it, you are the best on the market, or at least within the best top three, because now I know when I'm talking to other agents and there's ways we can check to see how many showings a property's getting, if you look at them, they're not getting showings because the number of listings is up here and the number of buyers that are in the market actively is down here. And so for most areas, Caledon, Brampton, Mississauga, Orangevale, days on market's over 60 days. Well, we talked about how the first 2 weeks is the most important time. Ideally, you want to sell your house within the first 2 weeks, maybe now pushing it out to 21 days. And how do you do that? You have to be priced right to start. And we talked about in a declining market why that's important because time is not on your side. So for sellers, it's make sure the property shows the best it can possibly be and that it's priced dead on. Don't think that, oh, I'm going to price high because the buyer is going to come in lower and I'm going to negotiate. I always say, as a seller, you want to be in control. So if you have no showings and finally you get an offer and they're lowballing you and you have to move, you might feel like you're in a corner and you have to accept that price. Think of it as if you're priced dead on the market and you're getting lots of showings and you have one showing and it's not good, but you've got a ton other ones. Yes, you're going to try and work with that offer, but if it doesn't come together, you're going to say, it's okay. I'm in control. I've got a whole bunch of other showings that are down the road. And then, you can walk away from it. So you want to be in control as a seller, price right, show great, allow the showings, be flexible with it, and, have a great realtor that's going to market it properly. And you'll be on solid foundations.
It's very strategic, right? Like I think what you're getting at, there's a lot of strategy that goes into it, and if you can nail down that strategy, it works really, really well. The last thing you want to be doing as a seller, I think, is chasing the market down, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's where you're going to lose all the time. You just don't want to be doing that. You want to be the one setting the benchmark of it and get it sold, and then everybody else is kind of chasing it down. So it doesn't work.
Right. And strategy is super important. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that. So for me, strategy is what goes into the listing, what doesn't go in the listing, what has to
Yes,
go in the listing, what do we have
yes.
flexibility. So one thing is age. We know that most buyers, especially first time, I want new. But you could be like, like it's zero to new, 0 to 5 years, 5 to 15 or whatever. You might be like 6 or 7. So you're almost new, but you're not. Or you could even be 30, but you've renovated the whole house. And if you put in 0 to 5 and the buyer says, no, I only want new 0 to 5, you're not even going to come into their
Right.
search results. So a realtor that understands this will know how they can position your property the best on the market. For me, it's also the day of the week that the property should be listed and the time of the day that the property should be listed. So little innuendos like this make a big difference. And again, that's experience.
Huge difference. Huge difference. You're so right about that because and the other thing is, I remember years ago I had a client that was looking for a condo, and the condo they ended up buying. What happened was it was on the market for a long time, and the realtor who had it listed made a mistake on the listing and said that there was no ensuite laundry, right? So it asked about the laundry, and the realtor made a mistake and put no. And I knew that building, and I knew that those units had ensuite laundries. And so I showed it to my buyer, and they got that condo. I think it was about 30 or 35,000 less than all the other condos had sold for. Why? Because people weren't looking at it because they thought that they didn't have an ensuite laundry. So people weren't looking at it. We were able to get a good deal. If I'm working for the buyer, I can't explain this to the agent, like, you've made a mistake here and this is why you're not getting showings. They weren't getting showings. So those little things make a big difference, right?
Mhm.
Even I've had clients, like, I remember we got a fantastic deal on a property because they bought on a long weekend, and the agent put it on the market on like Friday of a long weekend or Saturday of a long weekend. And I was like, oh my goodness, my place got such a good deal on that house because nobody looked at it. So they were like, oh my God, why is no one looking at our property? Well, it's a simple little thing. You can't put your property on the market on a Friday of a long, especially like the September long weekend or something where everybody's going away. Those things make a huge difference, and people don't
Mhm.
understand. It's such a like this 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 business is so interesting, right? Because it's so emotional. So we almost have to be like, we have to be almost like therapists and everything, right? That goes
And
along.
that's why it's also important to have a realtor on your side because it is emotional. Why do
Yeah.
realtors never sell their own house? We never sell
Well,
our
I
own
don't, yeah, I
house.
don't sell my own
We
house.
you get somebody else to represent you because we know it's emotional and
Yeah.
we can't make the best
Yeah.
decisions when we're emotional. So having that third party sort of oversee you and guide you through the process with eyes wide open and show you your different options will serve you well. And then one other thing about like the little intricacies and just another story. I had clients who bought this fantastic property in Caledon. It was on the market for quite a while, relatively speaking. And we ended up getting a really good deal because there was no showings. But the reason why was the agent was from out of town and wasn't on the local board. I'm like, oh my God. So they had like nobody and
Oh,
we're like in there and you know.
wow. I know. When you think about those things, it just blows your mind how important it is, right? It's
Mhm.
why it's so important to think about, like I get you want to work with, maybe sometimes you want to work with family or you don't want to offend people, but if they can't properly represent you, you have to be really upfront and open with them. And realtors don't get upset if you don't use them. If you like, just explain why, right?
Mhm.
Explain why you're going with someone else. Like I'm okay with that. I would have totally understand that. Like there's someone
Right.
else.
And for me, I always list on both boards. So I'm both on the Toronto
Yes.
Regional Real Estate Board and ITSO because we know that sometimes there are those out of town agents
Yes.
that are trying to sell their family friend in our area, but they have no access to this board. So, it costs us more money to do that.
Right.
It costs us more in financial and in time and putting it on both boards and managing both listings. But again, it's serving our
Yeah.
clients.
It's true. But you know what that makes me think of is where you were talking about um, prepping your house for sale, right? And a lot of people don't understand the importance of that and not spending money where you shouldn't, or spending some money, maybe redoing the flooring or something. And I get that people don't want to spend money because they're moving, but that little bit of money that you spend is going to make a big difference in the long run. Like even paint is probably the least expensive and
Mhm.
biggest return on your dollar, right? So sometimes people want to redo, whatever, redo a kitchen or redo something where what might happen is if you do it with your taste, somebody may come in and now not only are they not going to pay you for those upgrades, they're going to take money off because they're going to redo it. And that's, I always say with houses, like if you're selling a house and it's really outdated, you either do everything or do nothing. Sell it the way
Mhm.
it is or do everything, because if you do one or two little things in the house, sometimes it doesn't serve you because people are going to rip it out anyway. So it's
Right.
kind of, this
And
is where all the strategy I think comes in.
That is, and that for me, like I do what I call a room by room review. I'll go through the exterior of the house and then through each room and I'll make suggestions of it. And I'm looking at it, and people have to remember selling your house is not decorating your house. Staging is very different from decorating. It's to give
Yes.
it, people buy with, like you said, on emotion. So we need to get their emotions where they can feel themselves in the house. And it starts online. So when you were
Yes.
talking about painting, if your, walls are this funky color or dark colors and it just doesn't show well online. It could be brand new paint, but if it's the wrong color, it doesn't show well online. So having again that third party with a different set of eyes will let you see your house like you haven't seen it, right?
Yeah. And you have to look at it that way. Like you have to look at it as a product that people are coming in to see, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what it is. They need to be able to see themselves in
And
the
I understand that people don't have a ton of money when they're putting it up. So we'll do things that are inexpensive, like I said, but that are going to make the biggest difference. And then it's the staging, how it shows. And you always want to have, a focal point for every room. And you want the people to walk into that room and go, ah, and then go into the next room and go, hmm. The next room go, I can see myself here. And
That's right. And the kids running around going, this is
that's
room,
my
this is
room.
room. Yeah. Then like it's just it's so interesting. Yeah. So this is just in interest of time. We usually go 45 minutes. We've been here a bit, so I'm not going to take up any more of your time, Evelyn. But I really appreciate you. I always enjoy talking to you. You have such a great perspective, and you're always looking out for your clients. I know that. I know that from the conversations we've had, which is great.
Well,
So
that's what we have in common. We're always looking out for our clients.
thank you. So just if we want to wrap it up, I'm going to ask you a question that I've asked other guests that I've had on here. When it comes to buying or selling, there's a lot of challenges. You could make mistakes, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. At the end of the day, how important do you think it is, even with all those risks that you take and everything else, how important do you feel like it is to invest in real estate and buy a home and to live in if you can?
Right. Well, I think for me personally, I think that real estate is extremely important. I have 3 children, uh, all within 3 years. It was a busy time while I sold real estate. And I am so proud to say that all 3 of my children have their own home. My youngest son bought his first home at 21 years old. Like I was like, good for him. And so they've had their homes at different stages in their lives, but they've all made money on it. It's my oldest son just got married. He had bought his first condo. He was able to sell that condo and now buy this big, beautiful 5-bedroom house in a great area. He's in BC, overlooking the mountains and everything. And it's because he got in and got in at a price that he could live, first of all. So it wasn't over his head, but it appreciated over time. Not 1 year, 2 years. He was there, I think, 5 or 6 years and just sort of built on that. But it also gives people a sense of accomplishment. We have to live somewhere, and some people say, well, you can put your money in, stocks and bonds. Yes, you can, but you have to live somewhere. And for me, and it might not be for everybody, but for me, having a home, a place to come home to that I can call my own, that I can, decorate because I like to shop and decorate, just makes me feel great to, just to have that sense of accomplishment. And, for a lot of people over the years, they bought their house. And whenever we got into our house, I remember the first house we bought, it was like, now you can't sleep at night. And even the second house, you can't sleep at night. But then you get in and, because you're buying within your means, and then it's like, you're so happy. But over time, you build all this equity. And with that equity in your house, now you can go and do whatever it is that you want, right?
Yeah, it gives you options, right? It just
Yes.
gives you options, which I think is great. And thank you. Thanks. I agree. I think you said that wonderfully. So the fact that you want your kids to own real estate is important. It says that you believe it's an important thing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and I totally agree with you. I totally agree. The options it gives you and stuff is crazy. So what I would like to do, so we are going to, when we post this, put your contact details, your email and your phone number. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, welcome to do that. I know Evelyn will take really good care of you if you're working in any of those, if you're in any of the areas that she specializes in for sure, or for advice. And yeah, thank you so much, Evelyn. I really, this has been so much fun. We should do it again because there's so many more things that we could just.
I know we're never at a loss of words, though, Sandy.
Exactly. So, yeah, amazing. Okay, thank you so much. Is there anything
Thank
else
you.
there?
No, just thanks so much for having me here, and I look forward to chatting again.
Amazing. Thank
And
you.
if anybody has questions, I'm always open to sharing my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.